There's something haunting about winter nights, isn't there? Snowflake, the way snow falls quietly, covering the world in silence. Streets empty, trees heavy with white. Even your own footsteps sound muffled, like the snow is trying to swallow every trace of you. First, it feels peaceful, safe. But spend enough time out there, in the cold, in the dark, and that silence starts to feel unnatural. Almost like the world itself is holding its breath, waiting for something. And that's when the imagination kicks in. A crunch in the distance, a shadow moving where no one should be, a knock on the glass when the roads are buried in snow. Tell me, have you ever stared out at a snowy night and felt like someone was staring back? Tonight, I've got 3 chilling tales that take place on nights just like that. A lonely cabin in the middle of a blizzard, where the storm isn't the only thing outside. A mysterious hitchhiker in white, who never seems to make it home. And finally, a midnight knock on the window that no storm can explain. So, grab a blanket, turn off the lights, and get comfortable. But be warned, if you're watching this while snow falls outside your window, you might want to check twice before you look out there. If you love scary stories, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now. I post true horror stories every week, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's step into the snow together. I've always loved winter road trips. There's something magical about driving through long stretches of forest while the snow falls, watching the world turn white. But that magic wears off fast when the snow turns from gentle flurries into a suffocating blizzard. That's what happened to me. The weather forecast had mentioned light snow, but by nightfall, the storm was relentless. My car struggled on the icy road, headlights swallowed by the falling snow. Eventually, I couldn't see more than a few feet in front of me. When the engine began to cough, panic set in. I was miles from town, alone, and the storm was only getting worse. I remember thinking, if I stop here, I'm not making it till morning. I abandoned the car and trudged through knee-deep snow, desperately searching for shelter. That's when I saw it, dimly lit through the storm, tucked between skeletal trees. A cabin, small, dark, but real. Relief flooded me as I stumbled up the porch, nearly frozen. The door creaked open without much effort, like it had been waiting. Inside, the air was stale, but there was wood stacked by the fireplace and matches on the mantel. I lit a fire, thawing my stiff fingers, and for a moment, I felt lucky. But then I noticed the journal. It lay on a small table beside an oil lamp. The leather was cracked, pages yellowed. Curiosity got the better of me, and I started reading. The entries were short, frantic, someone describing nights trapped inside the same cabin. They wrote about scratching on the walls, footsteps crunching in the snow when no one was there. The last entries were smeared, as though written in haste. It waits until the storm hides its tracks. I shivered, telling myself it was just some bored writer or hunter. But as night fell, I heard it. Scratch, scratch. At first, I thought it was tree branches against the wall. But then footsteps, slow, deliberate, circling the cabin. My breath caught as I peered through the frost-covered window. Out in the storm, shadows moved against the whiteness. They weren't shaped like people. Too long, too thin. I tried to convince myself I was imagining things, that the wind and firelight were playing tricks on me. But then came the sound of breathing, low, guttural, just beyond the door. I pressed my back against the wall, clutching the journal like a weapon, heart hammering so loud I swore it would give me away. The footsteps circled again, closer this time. Snow crunched beneath something heavy, but when I looked again, there were no footprints in the snow, just untouched white. The scratching at the door grew violent. Nails, no claws, dragging down the wood. I didn't sleep, couldn't. I sat with my back to the fire until dawn lightened the cabin. When morning finally came, silence returned. No scratching, no footsteps, just the eerie hush of fresh snowfall. I wasn't going to wait around. I shoved the journal in my bag, pushed the door open, and stepped into the cold. The cabin stood solid behind me. I took one last glance at it before forcing myself through the storm. But here's the part one still can't explain. After hours of walking, I finally stumbled onto the road where a snowplow driver spotted me. I turned back, expecting to see the cabin's outline behind the trees. There was nothing. No cabin. No chimney smoke. Not even my own footprints leading back to it. Just untouched snow, smooth as if I'd never been there. And when I finally checked my bag, the journal was gone. There's a certain loneliness that comes with driving long, snowy highways at night. The world feels empty. Just the hum of your engine, the crunch of tires on ice, and endless white stretching in every direction. That's where I found myself one winter, driving back from a late shift. The snow was coming down heavy, and visibility was awful. I leaned forward over the wheel, squinting into the headlights, when I saw her, the figure on the side of the road. She was dressed in white, standing in the storm, her arm raised weakly like she was trying to flag me down. For a split second, I thought maybe my eyes were playing tricks on me, but as I passed, she turned her head and looked right at me. I slammed the brakes. My tires skidded before gripping the ice again, and I backed up slowly. She stood there shivering, hair matted with snow, face pale. She couldn't have been more than 20. My first thought was, what is she doing out here? I rolled down the window and shouted over the wind. Are you okay? Do you need a ride? She nodded, silent. Her lips were trembling too much to speak. I unlocked the door, and she slid into the passenger seat. She was ice cold to the touch, her clothes soaked through. I turned up the heat, but she just stared out the windshield, silent. Finally, in a small, shaking voice, she whispered, I need to get home. Where do you live? I asked. She gave me an address in a town about 15 minutes away. The drive was quiet. Every now and then, I'd glance at her. She sat stiff, her hands folded in her lap, eyes fixed forward. I tried to make small talk, asked if she'd been walking long, if she needed to call someone, but she barely responded, just nods, one or two soft words. When we finally pulled up to the address, it was an old 2-story house with a front porch, snow piled high against the steps. I turned to tell her we'd arrived, but the seat was empty. I froze, staring at the indentation in the cushion where she'd been sitting. My headlights cut across the snow-covered lawn, and there were no footprints leading to the house. Just untouched snow. Heart pounding, I got out and knocked on the door. After a moment, an elderly woman answered. She looked confused to see me. Sorry to bother you, I stammered. I picked up a young woman, said she lived here. But she was just in my car, and now she's gone. The woman's face changed instantly. Sadness washed over her, like she'd heard this story before. She opened the door wider and shook her head gently. You must have seen my daughter, she said softly. She died in a snowstorm years ago. She was trying to walk home that night. Every winter, someone kind like you brings her back. But she never makes it inside. My mouth went dry. She gave me a look of gratitude mixed with sorrow, then closed the door. I stumbled back to my car, trying to process what I just heard. My seat was still damp, wet from melting snow. The heater had fogged the passenger side window, and etched into it was the faint outline of a hand. I drove away fast, headlights carving through the storm, but the air in the car stayed cold for the rest of the ride. And to this day, whenever I see someone walking the highway on a snowy night, I hesitate, because I can't shake the thought. Maybe it's her, still trying to find her way home. I was in college when this happened. Winter break. Most of my friends had gone home to their families, but I stayed behind in our off-campus house. It was an old place, creaky floors, thin walls, but cheap rent. And when you're a broke student, that's all that matters. That night, the snow came down harder than I'd ever seen. Within hours, the roads were buried. The power went out around 10. No lights, no heat, just me, bundled in blankets, trying to squeeze every last bit of battery out of my phone. The silence was crushing. No traffic, no hum of electronics, just the howling wind outside, rattling the window frames. I kept telling myself I'd be fine. Storms pass, power comes back, nothing to worry about, until midnight. That's when I heard it. A knock, loud, slow, coming from the living room window. My stomach dropped. Nobody should have been out in that weather, let alone standing at my window. My phone flashlight cut across the room, trembling in my hand, and that's when I saw him. A man, standing outside, inches from the glass. His skin was pale, his clothes wet with snow. His eyes locked right on mine. He raised a hand and knocked again, steady, deliberate. Then I heard his voice. Let me in. But his lips weren't moving. I froze, every instinct screaming that something was wrong. My legs moved on their own, backing me into the hallway. The knocking followed, first at the living room window, then the kitchen window, then the one in the hallway. Each time louder, closer, more insistent. Knock, knock, knock. And with every knock came that same voice, soft, calm, too calm. Let me in. I ducked into my bedroom, locked the door, shoved my dresser against it. My phone was down to 3%. I dialed 911, but the call wouldn't go through. No signal, just dead silence. Then the knocking stopped. For a moment, I thought maybe the storm had driven him away. But then, knock, right at my bedroom window. Couldn't breathe. Slowly, I turned my head, and through the frosted glass, I saw him again. Face pressed to the window, eyes wide, lips still. Yet the voice filled the room, closer than ever. Let me in. I shut my eyes, curled under my blanket, and waited. The knocking went on and on, moving around the house. Window to window, room to room, then finally silence. The storm raged outside, but inside, it was as if nothing had happened. I must have passed out from exhaustion, because the next thing I remember was sunlight creeping into the room. The storm had stopped. I cautiously pushed the dresser away, cracked open the door, and walked through the silent house. Every window was frosted over, rimmed with ice. I went to the one in the living room first, dreading what I might find. But there were no footprints in the snow. None. The entire yard was smooth, untouched, as if no one had been there all night. That should have calmed me down. Should have made me believe I dreamed the whole thing. But then I saw it. On the inside of the glass, perfectly formed in the frost, were handprints. Not just one, dozens, smudged across the windows of every single room, pressed from the inside. Snow has always been a symbol of peace. It blankets the world in silence, covers up all the imperfections, makes everything look pure, untouched. But if tonight's stories have taught us anything, it's that silence isn't always safety. Sometimes it's a warning. Think about it. The cabin in the blizzard, where the storm didn't just hide tracks. It hid something circling in the dark. The hitchhiker in white, forever walking those frozen highways, still searching for a way home. And the knock at the window, where footprints never appeared, but handprints pressed from the inside told a different story. Snow muffles the world, but maybe that's the problem. Conceals, it disguises, it hides things that don't belong. Things that wait for the night, for the storm, for us to let our guard down. So the next time you're staring out at a snowy night, and the world feels just a little too quiet, ask yourself, are you really alone out there? And if you ever hear a knock on your window, or see someone standing in the snow, motionless, waiting, are they really supposed to be there? If you enjoyed these chilling winter tales, don't forget to subscribe. I share creepy true stories every single week, and trust me, you don't want to miss the next one. And now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had a strange or unsettling experience on a snowy night? Drop your story in the comments below. I'll be reading them all. Until next time, stay warm, stay safe, and whatever you do, don't answer the knock at the window.